Welcome to the Fantasy Football Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Blake Broadhurst. Let's jump right into the first segment, Start 'em and Bench 'em. My first must start this week is Steelers wideout Chase Claypool. I just want to say I really like this guy. He's taken the field and TikTok by storm in his rookie year. Anyways, last week he finished with 4 receptions for 56 yards and 2 touchdowns for 21.3 points. He leads his team in targets over the last 2 weeks over receivers like Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson. The Jags are also 10th in the league in points given to wide receivers. Please start this man in your fantasy football and TikTok leagues. If you're going to start Claypool, you've got to start his quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben has had at least 25 points in each of his last 2 starts, including throwing for 333 yards and 4 touchdowns last week for 29.3 points. Big Ben has been spreading the love throughout his plethora of receivers, and he will spread the love in your fantasy league as well. My final must start this week is Washington's Antonio Gibson. He has had at least 12 points per game in his last 3 games, including having 4 touchdowns in that 3-game span. Last week he finished with 13 rushes for 45 yards and 2 touchdowns for 22.5 points. Although the football team is struggling to string wins together, I am confident that Antonio Gibson is a worthy player to have in your starting lineup come this weekend. Now it's time for the players you should probably leave on your bench this weekend. My first bench is Rams running back Darrell Henderson. Henderson has been splitting the backfield with Cam Akers and Malcolm Brown lately, and he has been getting the short end of the stick. His week was saved last week with a touchdown as he only had 7 rushes for 28 yards for 10.3 points. He is struggling to get touches and worth leaving on the pine for your team. My next must bench is Eagles wideout Travis Fulgham. Fulgham has been a really exciting storyline all season, but I think the Cinderella story has come to an end. The Eagles now have Alshon Jeffrey, Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goedert, and Miles Sanders all active. That means that Fulgham is most likely playing 3rd or 4th fiddle now. Fulgham finished with only 1 catch for 8 yards for 1.8 points. Leave Fulgham on the bench this week and you will thank me later. My final must bench this week is Tampa Bay wideout Mike Evans. I really like Evans and I think that he is one of the most talented players on this loaded Bucs offense. The only downside to all that is the Bucs are matched up with the Los Angeles Rams this week. That means that Evans will most likely be matched up with Jalen Ramsey. If you've watched my segment before, you know how I feel about receivers being matched up with Jalen Ramsey. I'm picking Ramsey nearly every time. Although Evans finished with 6 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown for 19.7 points, he wasn't playing against Jalen Ramsey last week. Leave Evans on your bench this week. Now it's time for the weekly waiver wire, where I tell you who people are sleeping on in the NFL right now. My first big pickup is Chargers running back Kalen Ballage. Come on, he's even got ball in his name, and this kid can ball. With Justin Jackson on the IR, Ballage finished last week with 16 rushes for 68 yards for 15.2 points. He has quickly turned himself into the feature back on this young Chargers team, and I think that he will continue to put up big numbers. My next big pickup is Patriots wideout Jakobi Meyers. Cam Newton and the Patriots have been begging for a star to emerge on this offense all season, and I think they finally have one in Jakobi Meyers. He has showed up in a big way, finishing with 5 catches for 15.9 points last week. He continues to be one of Newton's favorite targets on this Patriots team that is finally clicking and winning games. I should have known better than to count out Bill Belichick. My final big pickup this week is going back to Washington and tight end Logan Thomas. Alex Smith coming back to the NFL is one of the greatest stories of our generation. From leaving football due to injury 2 years ago to nearly losing his life in the process. Now he is back to being a starter in the NFL. Oh yeah, he also threw for 55 passes last week in case anyone was wondering. In this air raid offense, Logan Thomas was his 2nd favorite target. Thomas finished with 4 catches for 66 yards for 10.6 points. He is also only owned in 25.9% of leagues. Picking up Thomas in your league is highway robbery. Well, that's all from my Fantasy Football Weekly Roundup. Tune in next Friday to see my weekly Start 'em and Bench 'em, as well as the weekly waiver wire. For the Daily O, I'm Blake Broadhurst. See you next time.